Hi, hello there, everyone. Good day. So, I hope you will enjoy this lesson for today. So, our lesson is entitled Derivatives of Trigonometric, Exponential, and Log Functions, or in short, the non-algebraic functions. Okay, so our lesson objectives for today are the following. Let's have them. First and last, we need to apply the differentiation rules in obtaining the derivative of trigonometric, exponential, and logarithmic functions. So first up, review muna natin yung ating basic derivative rules. First is the constant rule, which means every time we get the derivative of a constant, again, this is read as, let's get our laser pointer. And let me just turn off my camera. Yeah, so every time we have the derivative of a constant, no matter what that constant is, that is equal to 0. So let's have an example for this. Okay, this one. So again, this is read as the derivative of a constant with respect to x. So if we have, say, the derivative of 19 pi with respect to x, this will be equal to 0. We're used to the notation dy dx, which we also know as y prime if we're given with y equal to a function of x and we're getting the derivative of this function. So we either denote that as y prime or dy dx. Kaya lang dito nagkataon sa example natin, instead of simply y, yun yung generic natin na notation for the y na function of x. So ang ating y this time is 19 pi, which is a constant, so it will be equal to a 0. Yan. So sa next, ano naman natin, next rule, if we have a constant multiple rule, which means we have a constant multiplied by a function. Let's get a different color. We have a constant being multiplied to a function. We can take that constant outside and then differentiate the rest of the function. So say, for example, we are given with the derivative of this function, say, negative 3. Tapos we have, say, the function x to the 4th plus 5x squared minus 8x plus 1. Yan yung function natin. Tapos we're differentiating this function with respect to x. Instead of the usual dy dx, this thing or this expression inside the bracket is our y. So that means, sabi dito sa rule na to, we can take this constant outside, which in this case is negative 3. So labas lang si negative 3. And then differentiate the rest of the function. So what function are we talking about here? It's this function here. This function or polynomial raised to the 4th power or polynomial of degree 4. So ano yung derivative niyan? That will be 4x cubed plus 10x minus 8. Ayan. So in this case, we're expected to simplify this further by simply multiplying negative 3 to each of our terms here inside the bracket. So what we have is negative 12x cubed minus 30x, correct? And then what will be the last term? Plus 24. That's it. This is our derivative for the given function. Okay. Notice that once we remove this notation over here, we're already getting the derivative of the function. Yan. Kaya diretso na tayong equal to, so and so forth. Okay. Ayan. So for the power rule naman, that means we're getting the derivative of x to the n with respect to x. It's this formula. We just need to bring down the exponent n. And then the usual thing, we subtract 1 from the exponent, no matter what that exponent is, as long as it's a constant, no? As long as it's a real number. Whether that's a fraction, a negative, or a negative of a fraction, doesn't matter. Magsasubtract tayo ng 1 sa kanya. So for example, if we have the derivative of x raised to 1/2. Yan yung ating square root of x, di ba? If we are getting the derivative of that with respect to x, according to our rule, we need to bring down the exponent, which is 1/2. This coming from this one. Ayun siya, di ba? This exponent here, baba daw natin according to this rule. And then we need to subtract 1 from 1/2. So 1/2 minus 1 is negative 1/2. Yan. We can simplify this further. This expression with the negative exponent will go down to the denominator alongside with 2. So what we have is 1 over 2x to the 1/2. But then again, yung ating x to the 1/2 is actually square root of x. So this is 1 over 2 square root of x. If we are to rationalize this, multiply this by square root of x over square root of x to remove the radical on the denominator. So what we have is square root of x over 2x. And this becomes our final answer for this example. All right, so let's go to the next rule. We have the sum rule. Ito yung favorite natin, no? Wherein we simply get the derivative of each term in the expression. Okay. So, kunin natin siya. Say we're given, let me just put this above. So, if we're given, say, for example, with the derivative, so we're getting the derivative of, actually, somehow we applied it already on the other example. So, say we are given with x to the 9 plus 10x to the 7 power. Ayan. So, yan yung ating ina-add na terms. So, parang it's like this is our f of x and this is our g of x. So, if we're getting the derivative of that with respect to x, it's like distributing the differentiation process to each of this. Ayan. So, ano yung derivative ng x to the 9? That will be 9x to the 8 power plus the derivative of 10x to the 7, which in this case is 70x to the 6 power. Ayun, so that's it. This is our final answer for this derivative. Yan, so take note again, once we get rid of this notation, kinuha na natin kasi yung derivative. Okay? Wala na tayong d over dx dito sa kabilang side. Okay? So, ayun. Every time you want to digest or absorb everything that I'm saying, you can always pause the video to further reflect on the examples given. Okay? O di kaya kung medyo may kailangan kayong i-recall dun sa previous examples na minention ko, you can always rewind this recording. Alright, so let's go to the difference rule. Say we're subtracting naman. Although in our previous presentation, we combined these rules already. So say we are given with the derivative of, say negative 2x cubed minus, say 7x squared. Ayan. So with respect to x. Yan. So, eto na po, bali gagawin lang natin is get the derivative of the mean when that will be negative 6x to the second power. And then the derivative of your subtrahend will be 14x. So, minus 14x. All we have to do is subtract their respective derivatives. And this becomes our final answer to our derivative. Okay? Next is the product rule. So if we're getting, for example, the derivative of the product of, say, x cubed plus 9 multiplied by 4x to the, say, 5th power plus 3. Ayan. Tapos we're getting the derivative of that product with respect to x. So according to this rule, we need to copy the first factor, which is x cubed plus 9. Let's label it as C. That means we have copied that. Tapos yung second factor, let's label it with capital D, which means we're getting the derivative of the second factor, which is in this case is 20x to the 4th. Okay. Plus, remember this is a plus of or a sum of products. Yan. So, ang kakopy naman natin is the second factor, which is 4x to the 5th plus 3. And then, yung ating i-differentiate is the first factor, which is 3x squared. Okay, so we just have to distribute our 20x to the 4th to this expression. So, it's like applying distributive property or multiplication, simple multiplication ng products na to, no? You have two products being added. So, 20x to the 7. Be conscious of our exponent. plus 180x to the fourth. And then for the next part, we have this one multiplied by that. That will be 12x to the 7. So plus 12x to the 7. Remember, we're adding the exponents. And then for the next one, we have 9x squared. Positive 9x squared. Notice that we can combine this and the 20. So we have 32x to the 7 for our final answer. 32x to the 7 plus 180x to the 4th plus 9x squared. Okay, so that's it. This will be our final answer. Yan. Minsan may kalakihan lang yung mga values, but nonetheless, they will be manageable. Okay? So, for our quotient rule, we have this formula. Yan yung nakilala natin last time as U and V, di ba? So, we have named this as U and this is our V. So, likewise, itong product natin, niname natin as U and V. That's why we can have the formula as U V prime plus V U prime. That's the other version of our formula. So, in the quotient naman, we can, if this is our U and this is our V, that is equivalent to say V U prime. Let's write it here. Minus U, this is our U, di ba? That's U. And then this is our V prime over V squared. Yan, that's the version that we knew in our previous presentation. And then we can also baptize the numerator as high and then the denominator as low. So we can have that as, say, high, meaning siya yung nasa taas, nasa above, and then, and then we're getting the derivative of this quotient. So, derivative of the quotient, tapos high, di low. High and low. Let's erase this muna. Let's get an eraser. Let's erase this. Yan. So, kung gagawin natin siyang high and low, again, dito natin ilagay. Let's choose a different color of our pen. Say the maroon one. Okay. So, say our numerator is high. Tapos, our denominator is low. Yan. So, if we get the derivative of this one, we have derivative of the high. Tapos, kunin natin yung we're not using a fraction bar here. Hindi po tayo gagamit ng fraction bar kasi derivative of a quotient is not equal to the quotient of their derivatives. Remember that, no? So, we have the derivative of the denominator, which is d low. We have that notation also for our derivative. Okay? So, yung formula natin na natutunan last time, it's low d high or low times derivative of your high or multiplying that. Multiplication is commutative but subtraction is not. So, be conscious of the order. Minus high d low. Parang it's like cross-multiplying once you lay down the formula. Once you lay down the formula for the derivatives, no? Once makuha mo na yung derivatives, ilalagay mo na lang siya dun sa formula ng derivative ng quotient. So, ayun po, low squared. Yan. So, again, low d high means denominator times derivative of the numerator minus high d low, which means numerator times derivative of the denominator over the denominator squared. Let's have an example for this. Say we're given with the function, suppose we're getting the derivative with respect to x of the function. Kunwari yung function na gusto nating i-differentiate is 8x plus 1. Tapos dito naman sa baba, say we have x squared minus 2. Ayan. So, if we are getting the derivative of that, ibig sabihin yung high natin, 8x plus 1, yung low natin is x squared minus 2. Kunin muna natin yung the high and the low. Say, eto po yung ating the high. Derivative of the high will be 8. Derivative of the low will be 2x. Ayan. So, pag kinuha natin yung derivative, di ba? Derivative of a quotient is a quotient, but not the quotient of their the derivatives of the numerator and denominator. So, recite natin sa mind natin yung ating formula, di ba? So, this is just part of our scratch work, itong 8 and 2x. Ito talaga yung derivative niya, no? Low the high is this product. Okay, that will be 8 times x squared minus 2 minus high the low. So, minus 2x, remember, meron tayong minus or we're subtracting the product of 2x times 8x plus 1. Be careful with the sign, no? Over the square or the low square, the square of your denominator. Again, let's double check. This is the low the high part minus high the low. This is the high the low part over low squared. Okay? So, if we are to simplify this, a matter of writing this as 8x squared, that will be 8x squared minus 16x. Tapos, for this one naman, that is 16x squared minus 16x squared. You need to get the negative of the product. So, 2x times 1 is 2x, but then preceded siya ng minus sign. This is your minus sign over here. So, dapat 2x lang, kaya lang with the negative here, it's like multiplying 1 by negative 2x, so negative 2x. All over, medyo nag-overlap na po yung fraction bar natin, so mag-erase lang po ako ng konti. Nabura naman yung ating fraction bar. Yan, all over x squared minus 2 quantity squared. We can simplify this further. Magiging siyang 8 minus 16. That will be negative 8x squared. So, negative 8x squared. The final answer for this. Negative 16, negative 2 is negative 18x. All over x squared minus 2, the quantity squared. And that becomes your final answer for the derivative of the given quotient, 8x plus 1 over x squared minus 2. Ayan. So, chain rule naman natin. Again, you can always pause the video if you want to absorb the previous example. Ayan. For the meantime, we proceed to the chain rule. So, ito, pag meron ka daw function, tapos yung function mo, meron ka pang function sa loob, no? That means you have to get the derivative muna of the bigger function, yan, without changing the function inside, and then you multiply it by the derivative of the function inside. Actually, we have a different version of this last time, no? Yung version natin ng chain rule is derivative with respect to x. Sorry for that. Let's clear that portion. Pagandahin natin yung sulat. Okay. So, yung version na nakilala natin last time, if we're given with the derivative with respect to x of u to the n, where u is a function of x, that will become n, tapos u to the n minus 1, or kung meron tayong constant pa nga doon na multiplier, di ba, minumultiply natin, this is minus, and then multiplied by u prime, okay? So, it's like this portion, si f prime of g of x, ito yun. You're getting the derivative of this in general, no? Kaya lang, since yung nasa loob mo, this u is your g of x, you're getting the derivative of that u, which is u prime. Okay? Ayan. So, mamaya makaka-encounter pa tayo ng example for the chain rule. Okay? So, meanwhile, puntahan natin yung derivatives ng trigonometric functions. There's a separate video deriving some formulas in here. For the meantime, let's consider this one. So, derivative of sine x with respect to x is equal to cosine x. So, ito yung pinaka-y natin. This is the function we're differentiating. So, instead of the usual dy dx, yan, yung y natin, si sine x yun. Okay? So, derivative of that y, which is sine x with respect to x, is cosine x. The derivative of cosine x is negative sine x. It's like they swap, di ba? para silang nag-swapping. The sine, siya yung derivative ng cosine, tapos yung cosine, siya yung derivative ni sine, no? Kaya lang dito, meron tayong negative sign. Mamaya, meron tayong generalization dyan. Tapos, derivative ng tangent is secant squared. This is somehow synonymous to the derivative of cotangent. Sila yung magka-partner, itong dalawang to. If this is paired to secant squared x rather, yung derivative naman ng cotangent is negative cosecant squared x. Okay? Tapos yung derivative naman ng secant x, that will be secant x tangent x. Pwedeng magbaliktad tong dalawang to. No? You can write this as secant x times tangent x, which is synonymous naman sa derivative ng cosecant x na negative. Di ba si secant, parang katumbas niya si cosecant, si tangent, si cotangent, yung kaparallel niya. Okay? So, ayun po. Notice that all trigo functions starting with letter C. Ayan yun. Si cosine, cotangent, and cosecant, the derivatives are all negative. Okay? But don't you worry kasi I will be reminding you with these formulas every once in a while. Okay? Ayan. So ito, this is like applying the chain rule to our trigonometric functions. Kasi dito, yung u natin is a function of x. Okay? So yung u here is a function of x. So instead of the usual formula, di ba alam natin, derivative of sine u, si cosine u. Kaya lang since u is still differentiable, you still have to get the derivative of that u with respect to x. This is like the u prime that we know. So another version of this formula will be cosine u, this is your first factor, times this encircled one, which is the u prime, or derivative of u with respect to x. Diba? Remember when I introduced to you the notations in one of my videos or one of our lectures. Yan. So, another notation for this encircled one, du dx is also u prime. So, derivative naman ng cosine u, alam natin, negative sine u yon. Pero, since this one is differentiable, again, kukunin pa rin natin yung derivative nung nasa loob. That will be du over dx. Okay? So, derivative naman ng tangent u, is secant squared u. Again, we just have to attach this one. So, parehas lang nung kaninang formulas which I introduced a while ago. Yan. Ang nadagdag lang, notice na ang nadagdag lang, di ba? Ito yung derivative ng secant, di ba? Secant tangent, ito negative cosecant, cotangent. Ang nadagdag lang yung factor na du dx, which is coming from the derivative of the angles in here. Yung angles natin dito na function of x. Kasi yung x yung kino-consider natin na variable, independent variable. So for our example, say if we're given with sine 3x squared, the 3x squared here serves as our u. Ito yung u natin, si 3x squared. So following this formula, kakopy muna natin yung u natin. It is exactly the same as this one. Mag-a-appear ulit si u. Diba kung u yun, mag-a-appear din siya dapat dito sa kabilang side for the derivative. So cosine of 3x squared, yun siya, oh. Tapos meron ka lang extra factor, which is the derivative of that u, which in this case is, what's the derivative? 6x. Alright, so let's go to the next example. Say, we're given with cosine of square root of x. So, ang ating u ay si square root of x. This is our u. Okay? So, treating that as our u, siya yung dapat mag-appear din dito. The same u that appears here, you don't just copy the formula. You have to apply the formula. So, negative sine of square root of x, that will be this factor. It's this factor here. Multiplied by this factor. So, saan manggagaling yung du over dx? We're not supposed to write du over dx. What we need to actually obtain the derivative of this u with respect to x, which from our review is, alam natin, equal to this in non-rationalized version. Okay? Be careful with this because remember, you are not supposed to cancel square root of x and the square root of x here. Hindi po yun magka-cancel kasi this is treated as one factor, that entire thing. No, you're not supposed to treat this as two factors. Hindi siya sine times square root of x. Naka-package po ito. Okay, so hindi po cancelable si square root of x. So that means you can leave that as your final answer. Or kung gusto mo naman, pwede mo isang isulat as negative of sine square root of x over 2 square root of x. This is just the other way of writing this one, okay? Now, what about this next example? We have cotangent of sine x. Again, remember, this is not treated as a product. Be careful with that, no? Iba po yun. So, ito ang ating u. Our u is the sine x. This entire thing. It's like the cotangent of u. So, there's the copying part of that u. Kaya negative cosecant squared. Sundan lang natin yung formula, di ba? So, negative cosecant squared of that u. Mag-a-appear pa rin siya dapat, ha? You have a u on, you have parang kanta, no? You have a u on the left, you have a u on the right. Okay? Tapos, ito lang yung factor mo. What's your du dx? What's the derivative of sine x? Yun yung simpleng cosine of x. Yeah, that's it, no? Now, let's have our other example. Say, we're given with cosecant x squared. Medyo linisin ko lang po yung slide. Ayan, para makita po natin how we do the simple substitution. Basta pina-follow mo yung formula. Again, our u is, kunwari, cos x squared yung ating u. Replace mo lang din yung sa right side na u. Diba? U is that no? Tapos yung sa pangatlong factor, you have parang 3 factors. This is your first one, the second one, and then you have the third one. Ano yung derivative ng u with respect to x? That will be 2x, no? So, we are to replace the du dx by 2x. So, that's it. Your 3 factors are this one. You can actually write this as negative 2x times cosecant, parang yung negative is coming from here. So, negative of 2x. Remember, multiplication is commutative. Cosecant x squared times cotangent of x squared. Ayun, so present pa rin yung mga factors mo, no? Yung 2x, cosecant x squared, cotangent x squared, and the negative sign. Okay. So basically, this is the summary of our formulas for the derivatives of the trigonometric function. Okay. In some cases, you might see that this will be seen as u prime instead of du over dx. Dun sa ibang textbooks, instead of du dx, u prime yung other factor natin dito, etc. etc. Okay, so u prime lang din yon, or the derivative of whatever angle you have there. Dito nagkataon kasi na yung angle mo x eh. And what's the derivative of x? What's the derivative of x with respect to x? 1. Kaya it's as if meron kang 1 dito na factor. Parang may 1 ka lang na factor doon, which is optional to write. Okay? Now, what about for exponential functions? So, ito yung mga exponential functions natin. So, if we're familiar with the e to the x, yan yung ating constant na base, no? That's e is approximately 2.7, no? So, if you're getting the derivative of that, again, there's a separate derivation for this on another video, another recording. So, if you have the derivative of e to the x with respect to x, that is simply e to the x. Okay? Pwede nating i-highlight yan kasi that is one of our favorite formulas for the derivative. So, yung formula ng derivative niya, derivative of e to the x is itself. Okay? Ayan. Now, what we have here, kunwari, is a modification of the previous formula, this previous formula. What if our exponent is not just simply x? What if it's a function of x? Like, kunwari, nasa u siya na u is a function of x. So, there's still the copying part. Andun pa rin yung ika-copy mo whatever is given. But then, may madadagdag pa rin na factor. Ito yung u prime or du over dx, which is coming from the derivative of the exponent that you have. Kung dun sa trigo, ang ating du dx nanggagaling sa derivative ng angle, dito nanggagaling sa derivative ng exponent, which is a function of x or whatever variable you're considering. Okay? So for example, if you're given with e to the sine x, ayan, di ba yung sine x is our u. This is a function of x. So there's always the copying part. Kakopyahin mo whatever is given. Remember, you're just following the formula. But then you have to multiply by this factor, which is the du over dx, this factor, the one that I encircled. So ano yung derivative ng sine x? Cosine x. So all we have to do is simply multiply these two. And that's it. You can no longer simplify this further. That is our final answer. What about if we're given with a different base, kunwari, a different constant base? So, suppose it's not the Euler number or the special number E. Suppose it's any other constant. Yung ating, di ba, exponential, this can be any number greater than 1. No? Pwedeng 1/2, pwedeng 2, pwedeng 3, 5. Pwede din namang 5 halves, no? Yung pwede rin naman siya maging fraction. Pero normally, it's a, what they call this? It's a whole number. Okay? So, again, pag exponential, there's always the copying part. Kaya lang meron tayong extra factor this time na ln of a. Yan. So, dito kasi supposedly meron kang ln of e. Kaya lang ln of, kasi your base is e. Correct? Dito kasi your base is a. Kaya you're getting the natural logarithm. ln is the natural logarithm of a. That is from Gen Math of grade 11, no? But ln of e is 1 in this very special case. That's why pwede nating hindi na isulat yun. Unlike here, if a is any other number or any number other than e, you have to write it in here. So for example, if you're given with the derivative of 5 to the x, what will be the derivative of that if we follow the formula? A matter of following the formula, pagsunod lang naman po, obedience to the rule lang naman. So parang yun yung values na kinocultivate sa atin, no? How we obey certain rules. So there's the copying part multiplied by ln of 5. Parang yung a natin, double purpose siya. Naging base mo siya dito and then it comes with the ln thing. Okay? So ayun, naging base mo siya dito that you have to copy the given and then you need to multiply by the ln of that base 5. And then what if we are given with this one where the exponent for a is a u, which is a function of x. Again, there's always, if we follow the formula, there's always the copying part. Ayan, the copied part is a to the u, whatever is the given, di ba? Again, you still have the ln a. If you follow this pattern, again, lalabas lang mayroon kang extra factor na du, dx, or u prime. So, for example, if you have 5 raised to tangent x, or tangent x, di ba? Alam natin, makukuhanan pa rin natin to ng derivative. Remember, there's always the copying part, so we need not overthink. Yan, basta simplihan lang po, kalma lang, ano, copy lang natin whatever is in given. Ayan, so si 5 raised to tan x, ito yun, check. That's your first factor. Second factor is ln of your base. Your base is 5, so ln of 5. And then last factor will be the derivative of your u. And what's your u? It's the tangent of x. So what's the derivative of that? Secant squared x. Yan. So that's it. That's for our derivative. When I check this, usually, pagka tinanong ko to sa exam sa mga students ko, I check this. Yan, one by one, yung mga factors natin. Ayan. So this is the summary of the formulas kaya for the logarithm naman, no? So kanina merong copying part. So ito naman kaya, kamusta naman kaya yung sa logarithmic functions? So if we're getting the derivative of this logarithmic or natural logarithm of x. This is ln of x. The derivative of this function is simply 1 over x. Yan. May mga videos about the derivation of these formulas. Kaya lang dun tayo sa application nagpo-focus no? So you can check the videos, the other videos we have for the derivation of the formulas. Especially this one. No? Kung naku-curious kayo, bakit kaya naging derivative ng ln x, naging fraction lang na 1 over x. Now, if we have this one, so ito parang basically naging fraction. Kung sino yung kasama ni ln, ito yung si x, lalagay lang natin siya sa denominator. Okay? What about if you're given with ln of u or ln of f of x? This is our u or a function of x. Again, we simply have to place this portion here. Whatever yung kasama ng ln, we simply place that on the denominator and then yung extra factor natin, si f prime of x. Ayan. So, kanina yung nandito, in-emphasize natin, lalagay lang sa denominator. Tapos ito nasa denominator. And what about for our example related to that? So, kunwari meron kang ln of tangent x. Di ang lalagay natin sa baba, sino? We just have to place this portion on the denominator. And then, lagay lang natin si 1 sa numerator. Kaya lang, di ba, 1 times this 1, parang ito na lang din yung lagay natin sa numerator. So, what's the derivative of tan x? Differentiate that. That will be secant squared x. So, anong ginawa natin? Yung andito sa denominator. And then, kinopy mo sa denominator. And then, yung derivative niya sa numerator naman. Okay? So, that's it, no? Copy sa denominator, derivative, numerator. Now, what about if you have, this ln here is actually understood to be log to the base e. Yan. Paano kapag log to the base a? By the way, if this a is not specified, that is understood to be 10. Okay, again, if this a is not specified, kunwari you have log of x. This means log to the base 10. Understood base ng logarithm. Okay, so if you have this one, andun pa rin yung 1 over x na factor, tapos meron ka lang ln a, di ba? Sa exponential, yung ln a kasama nung nasa taas, nasa e, no? Kaya lang dito, nasa denominator si ln a. Okay? So, by the way, this one can be simplified further. Pwede nating isulat as secant x times cosecant x. But that will be using identities. So, this one will suffice. Kung naku-curious tayo, bakit naging ganito? Diba kasi secant squared x tapos over tangent x, no? Tangent x is sine over cosine. So, we can actually express this as secant squared x. Tapos, multiply this by the reciprocal of our divisor. So, that will be coming from cosine x over sine x. Yan. Kaya lang si secant squared x is 1 over cosine, no? This is actually 1 over cosine. Kaya, since naka-square 1 over cosine squared x, tapos meron ka dong cosine x over sine x. Yan, so magka-cancel lang yung cosine x. This portion is your secant x and 1 over sine x is cosecant x. But simplifying from this to this is optional. This one will suffice. Okay na po ito. Kasi this will require some identities which we did not recall anymore for this video. Okay? So, ayun po. You can screenshot this slide if you like, or you can pause this slide if you are very interested with that derivation. Yan. But meanwhile, meron tayong next part. If you're given with the log to the base A of f of x, ito yung nakilala natin before as our u. Lalagay pa rin natin siya sa denominator. Tapos yung derivative niya nasa numerator kasi multiplier is 1. Kaya lang it comes with the new denominator comes with this factor pa rin, ln of whatever base you have in here. Okay? Like for example dito, no, what do we write on the denominator? Ito yung u mo or function of x. We have to place that on the denominator. Remember, your denominator will become e to the x, and then yung base natin is 2. We have ln of 2. Tapos, whatever is the derivative, ano yung derivative ng e to the x? Yun yung lalagay mo sa numerator. Take note, you can cancel the e to the x. So, this will just become, simplify natin. This will just become 1 over ln of 2. Ayan. So, this is the final answer for the derivative of log of e to the x to the base 2. All right, so let's go to the next part. Let's find the derivative of this expression with respect to t. We're getting g prime of t. You can pause the video if you want to get a scratch paper and do this first on your own. Ayan. Okay, so let's proceed with let's check your answer. Okay, so if we're getting this, in general, this is a product. Product siya ng e to the t and this expression with sine t minus cosine t plus 1. So, product rule will prevail. Gamitin natin yung product rule, which states that the derivative of this function is, ito yung may copy, differentiate, plus copy, differentiate. So, let's get first the individual derivative. So, derivative ng e to the t is e to the t. Tapos yung sin t minus cosine t is cosine t. Derivative ng cosine t is negative sin t. Kaya minus negative is sin t. Okay. Ayan. So you can consult the formula list that we have kung sakali pong nakalimutan. Okay. Ayan. So sabi natin yung ito, this one is coming from the first factor times the derivative. These expressions in red are the derivatives of the first and second factor respectively. Itong mga naka-red, ito, derivative siya nun. This is our u prime. This is our v prime, assuming this is our u, this is our v, this is your u prime, this is your v prime. So, ang u v prime natin is this product. Ayun siya. Tapos, ang VU prime naman will be this product. Yun yung kagandahan na kinuha na natin yung individual derivatives. That will be this one. Notice that you have a common factor here, si e to the t. Pwede nating i-factor out. Labas natin siya. Kinolor code ko, no? This is coming from this one in blue. Tapos ito yung naka-red. Notice that you can cancel the cosine t. Tapos you can combine the sine t's. Magiging 2 sine t plus 1 yung expression sa parentheses, and then you still have the e to the t outside. And this becomes our final answer. All right, so let's now move on to our example 2. Let's find the derivative f prime of x. So suppose this is your f of x. How do we get its derivative? Medyo combination po tayo ng product rule and quotient rule. But remember, meron na po tayong na-derive na derivative ng square root of x. This is very useful. Diba, na-derive na natin. This is coming from x to the 1/2 eh. So, ito na yung derivative niya. So, every time we're getting the derivative of square root of x, let's remember it's this formula. Okay? Para hindi na tayo mahirapan na lagi tayong kumukuha ng derivative ni x to the 1/2. Okay? So, dun muna tayo sa product rule for this expression. Okay? So, ano pong gagawin natin? Derivative ng square root of x, derivative ni e to the x. Kinuha muna natin yung u prime and v prime respectively. Where this is the u, this is the v, this will be the u prime, this is the v prime. Okay? So, ang uv prime natin is this product. Tapos, ang vu prime natin will be this product which is given by this expressions in black. Alright. So, doon naman tayo sa pangalawang term dito. What about, let's get our laser pointer. What about this one? This is now of the form quotient. Nasa quotient form siya, no? So, that means we need to apply the quotient rule. So, pag in-applyan natin siya ng quotient rule, this will be treated as our u. This is treated as our v. We need to get the u prime and the v prime, no, for the formula to be facilitated much easier, no? So, kunin muna natin yung u prime. What's the derivative of sine x? That will be cosine of x. Asan siya? Ayun. Okay. Tapos, by the way, sinulat ko na yung fraction bar. Ayun po. Tapos, yung square nito, that's coming from this formula. Diba? If you square root of x, that will simply be x, no? Tapos, kinuha ko muna yung derivative ng numerator. Tapos, derivative ng denominator is, again, this expression. Derivative ng square root of x is this one. So, I need to just write it there. So, ito yung high and low. This will be your d high and d low. Okay? So, low d high will be this product. So, ang low d high natin will be this one. Yun siya. Minus high d low. Okay? So, that's minus high d low. Okay? Over law squared. So, that's it. This will become our final answer. Okay na po yan. Okay. Ina-absorb. What about this one? Let's find the derivative of f prime of x, given that this is our f of x. Again, you can always pause the video if you want to answer this first on your own before clicking the proceed button. Ayan, pwede nyo i-click yung pause button ng ating video recording. Okay. So now, let's check your answers. So we will use the product rule. Again, we will treat this as our u. We'll treat this as our v. So it's like having u and v. So kunin natin si u prime. Ito yun, si 4x. Correct? Tapos what about our v prime? Our v prime is e to the x. Favorite natin yan, di ba? Tapos uv prime will be this product. Yan. So, i-highlight natin to. Ito po yun. Tapos, yung ating uv prime, nilagay na natin dito. Plus, vu prime. It will be this product. So, plus 4x e to the x. Again, we notice that e to the x is a common factor. Labas natin si e to the x. Labas si e to the x. So, we have e to the x times 2x squared plus 4x, in-arrange lang natin yung terms, plus 5. Okay, so this becomes our final answer for number 3. Okay, now let's proceed to the next part. Let's differentiate this. Ayan, ito yung mga common errors ng mga estudyante. Suppose we're asked to differentiate ln of x to the 8 versus ln of x, quantity to the 8 power. Okay, so anong difference nila? Dito yung 8, exponent lang ni x. So, si x lang yung nire-raise mo sa 8 power. Dito ang nire-raise natin sa 8 power is the entire expression ln x. Let's not get confused with that. Okay? So, ang i-apply natin na formula dito sa left side is it's this formula where our u is x to the 8. Okay? Ayan. So, ito yung madaling version ng ating formula. So, ang ating magiging answer will be y prime. Kasi this is y, so our y prime will be Sabi sa formula, whatever your u is, ito yung u mo, whatever u we have there, ito yun, lagay sa denominator. So we have an x to the 8 there. And for the numerator, we get the derivative of this one which we just copied, no? Kakokopya mo lang sa kanya coming from there. Yung derivative nito, siya yung nasa numerator. Okay, so that will be 8x to the 7. Okay, notice that we can simplify this further. Makakancel natin yung x to the 7. Tapos ito, mawawala itong exponent. Ito disappear. And our final answer will just be 8 over x. We just applied the laws of exponents from here. Okay? Ayun. So, what about for the other side? So, apply naman natin dito yung we have a function raised to a power. What rule are we applying? The chain rule. Yan, di ba? Meron tayong, ito yung isang version ng chain rule natin wherein we can bring down the exponent kasi wala tayo. Yung c natin is just 1, no? We just have to bring down the 8. Nasaan yun? Ayun. Tapos, the ln x, yun yung u. Ln x is our u. We'll be raising that to 8 minus 1, which is 7. So, ln x raised to 7. Take note, you have to, nakakadalawang factors ka na. What's our third factor? It will be the derivative of this expression inside. No, huwag na natin pansinin yung exponent. So, dito ka lang sa loob. Derivative of this is 1 over x. So, ayun si 1 over x. You can just write this in more compact form. Ito yung numerator. This is your denominator. Ayun siya. So, may difference, no? Yung kanilang derivative. Kaya, be careful with this expressions. Now, what about in here? Dito parang kaparehas lang din, ano, nung kanina. Dito ang nire-raise mo sa second power is just x. Dito, what we're raising to the second power is the expression sin x. So, dito sa part na to, we recall the formula for sin u. So, what's the derivative of sin u? Cosine of u, diba? This is sin u, cosine of u times your u prime or du dx. What's the derivative of this? That will be 2x. Okay. Whereas yung kabila naman, we need to apply the, again, for this one, ito na yung final answer. You cannot combine this anymore. Okay, these are two individual, ito yung ating isang kumpletong factor. This thing is our complete first factor. Tas ito yung parang nagsiserve as our second factor. Whereas this one, function raised to a power, every time you have something like this, function raised to a power, we remember our chain rule. Baba si 2, copy the base, raised to 2 minus 1, and then derivative ng base, which is cosine x. If this expression is familiar to you, that means ito yung double angle identity na alam natin equal sa sine 2x. But if you forgot your double angle identity sa trigo, again, this answer will suffice. Okay. Now, what about in here? Again, you can always pause this video if you think you still need to absorb what I've been saying. What about if you're given with cosine of x squared plus 5 and here you have cosine of x squared plus 5. So there's a difference between the two, no? That's why we need to differentiate or we need to distinguish the difference between the two expressions. Dito, parang sum rule lang yung i-apply mo, di ba? Sum or difference rule wherein you need to get the derivative of this plus the derivative of this one, okay? Ito, cosine of this expression. So, for our first one, alalahanin natin yung formula natin for the derivative of cosine. Cosine u is negative sine of this u. So, negative sine of u, which is ganyan. Tapos, times your du dx or derivative of your u, which is 2x. Pwede rin bang negative 2x sine of x squared? Yes. Tapos, this is for the derivative of this, plus this first term. What about the derivative of 5? 0. So, ibig sabihin, this is already sufficient. So, siya na yun. Okay. So again, another way of writing that answer is, let's get our pen. Another way of writing this will be negative 2x times sine x squared. Yan. And okay lang na isulat natin yung answer natin also in this form. Okay. Now, what about for this other side, no? Ito yung u mo. This entire thing is your u. So, pag in-apply natin siya dito, si x squared plus 5, ito yun. Ito, x squared plus 5 din. Okay? Kasi sabi dun sa formula, di ba? We have to copy the angle first. Ayan, syempre, meron kang pangalawang factor which also happen to be equal to 2x. Kasi 2x plus 0, no? Yung derivative ng u natin. So, ayun lang siya. Or you can rewrite your answer as negative 2x multiplied by sine of x squared plus 5. So, this is another way of writing the derivative of this expression here on the right. Okay. Now, let's go to this one. Actually, we have differentiated this a similar expression, no? Yung ganito. So, derivative ng cotangent, ano nga ba siya? Ito, no? So, negative cosecant squared. Okay? But then we remember yung derivative ng square root of x, diba? Derivative of square root of x with respect to x is equal to 1 over 2 square root of x. We remember that one also, no? So, if we are to differentiate this, ito yung ating u. Siya yun no? So, kakopy mo lang siya dito, but then you change the Trigo function to negative cosecant squared. So, the derivative y prime, I'm using the from y to y prime, so I'm applying the differentiation process already. Negative cosecant squared of the u. I don't need to write this first, no? Ito muna dapat. So, si square root of x muna. Yan, dapat yung u muna, kakopy natin. And then the next one, the next factor will be the derivative of this u. So, ang u natin is square root of x. So, this is the derivative. Si 1 over 2 square root of x. Okay, another way of writing this will be negative of cosecant squared square root of x over 2 square root of x. Again, you cannot cancel. We cannot cancel the square root of x. This is our final answer for this one. Okay. For the other side naman, this is actually cotangent x raised to 1/2. So again, we have an expression being raised to a power. Pagka ganun, expression being raised to a power, we remember the chain rule. So y prime, chain rule, bring down the exponent, copy the base, raise to exponent minus 1. So 1/2 minus 1 is negative 1/2 multiplied by the derivative of your base, which is negative cosecant squared x. Para hindi mapagkamalang subtraction, let's place that in a parenthesis. So we have negative, let's rewrite it this way, negative cosecant squared x. Ang mga denominators natin is 2, are 2. Tapos this is being raised to, magiging positive na yung 1/2, no? So cotangent x raised to the 1/2 is square root of cotangent x. Okay, so this is the nicer version of our answer. Alright, so what about this one? We're given with this e to the tan x plus 1, and then the other side naman is e raised to the power tan x plus 1. So we remember the formula for e to the u, no? This is e to the u. So formula for the derivative of e to the u with respect to x, if u is a function of x, is e to the u times u prime. Ito yung u mo. So, gagawin lang natin, i-copy whatever is the given times derivative of your exponent. Tapos, derivative naman ng 1 is 0, so we can forget about that, no? And then for the other side naman, ang e to the u mo, is the copying part. You have to copy the entire thing. Pero yung derivative ng ating exponent is still the same thing, si second squared x pa rin. So, pwedeng lagay mo yun sa parenthesis if you're more comfortable with that. Okay, so basically, that's it, no? Ito yung ating inalalang formula. So now let's have this one. Let's find the derivative at 0 if f of x is sine pi x. So ano yung pi x natin? Ah, ano yung ating derivative for that, no? So kailangan natin munang kunin yung f prime of x. So let's recall our formula for parang this is our u. This is our u. So ano ba yung derivative ng sine u? Let's recall from here. Derivative of sine u is actually cosine u times u prime. Okay? So, yung guided tayo ng formula natin. So, that's cosine of pi x times derivative of our u, which is, diba sabi natin pag ganito, we just have to pick up the coefficient. So, that will become pi. Okay? So, if we're getting f prime of 0, substitute natin si 0 to our variable x, this will become cosine of 0. Pi times 0 is 0 times pi. But cosine 0 is 1. This is equal to 1. 1 times pi is pi. So, this becomes our final answer. So, f prime of 0, if f of x is sine pi x is equal to pi. What about in here? Paano natin kukunin? So, it's like practicing then what's the difference between the two, no? So, kunin natin yung f prime of x. Yan. So, remember, this is of the form a to the u. So, pag nasa form na a to the u, what's the derivative of this expression with respect to x? There's the copying part. And then there's the ln of the base. And then the derivative of this exponent. That's your u prime. Okay? So, copy. That's 3 raised to tan x. Parang ito yung u mo dito, di ba? Tapos times ln of your 3, not ln of tan x, no? The base, yung basis natin dun sa formula, times derivative of tan x is second squared x. So, you have a second squared x here. Okay? Plus, dito naman sa pangalawang term, we need to take out this constant. Labas siya. And then, differentiate the rest of the expression. Derivative ng tan is second squared x. So, we have second squared x there. Yeah. Notice that second squared x is a common factor. We can take this outside. I-factor out natin siya. So, we have second squared x. We can simplify this further, no? Tapos, pag nilabas natin, we have 3 raised to tangent x times ln of 3 plus, ito naman ay 3. Ayan. Actually, these are commutative. This is commutative. Kaya, pwede nating pagbaliktarin or pagswapin yung dalawang terms. But this one will suffice. Okay. Basically, that's it. Now, let's have our time for questions. You can, again, get another scratch paper for you to answer this one. You can always pause the video if you want longer time answering. Okay? Let's have this one. Find f prime of x given that f of x is sine 3x squared minus log to the base 3 of sine x squared. Ay. So, let's answer. Let's check your answer. Our f prime of x. Yan. Guided by our formula. This is of the form sine u. This is our u. Derivative of that is cosine of u. So, cosine, parang it's like reciting your formula inside your head. So, cosine of u times your u prime. So, ang ating u prime is, the derivative of your u is 6x. Ayan. So, lagyan natin ng parenthesis para hindi kayo malito, no? Minus, for the other one naman, you have log to the base 3 of this function. Okay? So, ito yung ating log of what? Sine u, no? Para mag-combination siya nito, no? Ng log and sine function. So, this is our u, this whole thing. So, if we have a logarithm, alam natin, ang ating derivative is a fraction. Tapos, ang nasa fraction, di ba, yung whatever is in here that comes with log, lalagay natin siya sa baba. Let's place it on the denominator together with the ln of this base. So, ln of 3. Tapos, what we write on the denominator will be the derivative of this u. So, ano ba yung derivative ng sine of this? So, meron kang inner u pa dito kasi sine, parang sine of this u. So, derivative ng sine u, quote-unquote, kasi may bago kang u ngayon, cosine, let's recite the formula in red. Cosine u is cosine x squared times the derivative of that new u, which is 2x. Ayan. So, pwede pa po natin i-simplify ba? Pwede pa, pero this one will suffice. Okay na po yan na final answer. Although, some of you might be simplifying this portion. Pwedeng gawin yung cotangent of x squared to. Kung familiar kayo sa cotangent. So, pwede siyang ito. Pwedeng pagbalik ta rin. You can rewrite that as 6x times cosine of 3x squared minus 2x, cotangent x squared. That's coming from this expression na acting in-encircle times 2x over ln of 3. Yan. But again, I'm telling you this answer will be sufficient. Okay. What about in here? So, kunin natin, parang dinidistinguish din natin yung difference nitong dalawang to. Yan. Again, you can pause the video if you want to have more time answering. Let's check your answer. We have f prime of x. This is function raised to a power. So, chain rule, 12. Tapos, copy the base raised to 12 minus 1. That will be 11 times derivative of your base, which is second squared x. Okay. Tapos, sa kabila naman, this will be of the form a raised to u. The base is constant. So, ano yung formula ng a to the u? What's the derivative of that with respect to x? Yun yung copy part, ln of your a times u prime. So, there's the copying part. That's 12 raised to tan x times ln of 12. Yan. Following the formula. Ito na yung mga formulas na na-satisfy natin. Then, third factor, derivative ng tan x is second squared x. Okay. Again, we can simplify this by just writing the second squared outside of our expression. Factoring it out, we have 12 tan x to the 11. Tapos, ito naman, magkakaroon tayo ng 12 to the tan x times ln of 12. And that's it. This is our final answer. Okay. Now, let's have this one. This is now a product. We'll be applying the product rule. This one is a function raised to a power. So, again, you can pause the video if you want to try this first on your own before checking your answer. So, let's have our f prime of x now, assuming you have already tried answering. Let's check your answer. Product rule. So, copy. Derivative of this is second tangent. So, second x times tangent x. Plus, remember product rule, there's a plus in between. You need to copy the second x. times derivative of x, which is 1. So, no need to write it anymore. Plus, ito naman, function raised to a power. That will lead to our chain rule. So, bring down the negative 5. Second x will be raised to negative 5 minus 1, which is negative 6. Tapos, derivative is again, derivative ng second x, tan x. Sorry, medyo malabo yung sa may green portion. Pero we notice second x tan x is a common factor. Labas natin siya. Ayan. So, labas natin si second x tan x. So, ang natira dito is x. Ay, hindi pala natin siya pwedeng ilabas. Sorry, kasi this is another term na walang second x tangent x. So, mukhang si second x lang yung pwede nating ilabas. Okay. Second x lang is the only common factor. Okay. Pag nilabas natin si second x, we have second x here. Ang natira ay si x tan x for the first term. Tapos for the second term, understood cofactor of this is 1. Diba? Parang it's as if this is 1 times, no? So plus 1. This becomes negative kasi plus negative 5. So minus 5. Natanggal na natin si second x. So, ang natira na lang si 5 second x to the negative 6 and tangent x. So, minus 5 second x to the negative 6 times tangent x. And that's it for our final answer. Although this one will suffice, yung kanina, okay lang din naman yun. Okay, let's go to number 4. Find f prime of 0. Okay, so assuming you have tried already answering, let's check your answer. Yan, kunin muna natin si f prime of x before we substitute the 0 to the derivative. Remember, this is the derivative of the function evaluated at 0. So, again, this can be written as 2. Tapos, sine x plus 1. It's like ito is being raised to what power pag square root? 1/2. Okay, so we can multiply this coefficient by the exponent. So, 2 times 1/2 is 1. So, pwedeng di na isulat. Gusto nyo, lagay na rin. Ayan, for your convenience. And then, sine x plus 1 is now raised to negative 1/2. Why negative 1/2? Kasi 1/2 minus 1. Exponent minus 1. Negative 1/2. Its derivative of this base will be cosine x. Yan. So, basically, this is cosine x. Since this is raised to a negative power, baba po natin siya para maging positive. Pag sa baba, that is sine x plus 1 raised to 1/2. So, it's square root of sine x plus 1. So, ito yung f prime of x, this expression. Ang kailangan natin is f prime of 0. So, f prime of 0 will be cosine 0, replacing all our x by 0. Tapos, square root of sine 0 plus 1. Cosine 0 is 1. Sine 0 is 0. So, this will be 1 over 1, which is just equal to 1. Ayan po yung ating final answer. Now, let's move on to this last item for this set of exercises. Let's find f prime of 1. Kaya, ito naman po yung given. Okay, assuming you have paused the video to try answering, let's first get f prime of x. Laging kunin muna yung derivative before you substitute, ha? So, ito yung u form natin. This is ln of u. Sabi sa formula, derivative ng ln of u with respect to x is equal to Yung u lalagay sa baba, u prime sa taas. So, yung u lagay sa baba, tapos derivative lagay sa taas. So, derivative is 2x minus 1. Alright, so if we are getting f prime of 1, this will be 2 times 1 minus 1 over 1 minus 1 plus 1. 2 minus 1 is 1. 1 minus 1 will cancel out. So, we have 1 over 1 which is equal to 1. Nagkataon lang na similar dun sa previous answer natin pero yun ang ating nakuhang derivative at evaluated at 1. So, I hope you got 5 out of 5 for that set of exercises. Ayun, so sana po natuto. Yan. So, thank you for listening. Have a nice day.